The strangest thing happened in my husband's office lobby. I was sitting there scrolling my phone when the security guard walked straight over and, without a word of greeting, slipped a folded note into my open purse like he'd practiced this handoff a dozen times. Then he leaned in and whispered, with absolute seriousness, "Don't read it here, only at home." I didn't open it in the lobby. I waited until I could be alone, and what I found changed everything. But before any of that, the afternoon had started out with nothing more than boredom and bad lobby furniture. The Lobby Boredom Olympics. I called it the Lobby Boredom Olympics, and I was definitely taking the gold that afternoon. Picture me on a stiff, fake leather couch that squeaked if you so much as breathed, locked in a staring contest with a ficus so flawless it looked like it had been ordered straight out of a catalog. Across the room, the receptionist typed like she was trying to beat the keyboard into submission. And nearby, two men argued in hushed tones about quarterly numbers as if stock reports were a life or death matter. Outside, it was blistering July heat, yet inside the air conditioner hummed just enough to freeze my ankles. The contrast was maddening. I checked my phone again, 4:30. Wayne had promised me that he'd be ready to leave on time today. This wasn't just any mundane after-work errand either. We were supposed to pick out a new phone for our daughter's birthday. She'd been begging for one for months, and Wayne had insisted he'd wrap things up early so we could shop before the crowds. That little plan was the only thing keeping me from fossilizing into the couch, scrolling endlessly through headlines I didn't care about. News about politics, world events, and celebrity drama all flowed past like TV static, none of it sticking in my head. Even the group chat was silent. The minutes crawled. No new notifications lit up my screen, no texts from Wayne to say on my way. Nothing. Just the same recycled scroll and the low buzz of office life going on without me. At one point, I started assigning personalities to the objects around me, just to stay sane. The ficus, of course, was Gerald, a silent straight man to my slow descent into absurdity. Gerald didn't flinch in the draft from the air vent, didn't shift under passing footsteps. Perfect. Impossibly perfect. If any plant was plotting world domination, it was definitely Gerald. That's how far gone I was inventing character arcs for lobby plants. I half joked with myself that waiting rooms were designed for this exact kind of mental erosion. Layer on neutral furniture, no real entertainment, the faint hum of machinery, and voila! You could watch the clock chew minutes straight out of your lifespan. Waiting there felt like serving time for a crime I couldn't remember committing. I leaned back, flipping restlessly between apps. A couple more employees shuffled through the glass doors, each with their own purpose and trajectory, while I sat glued in place like some background prop. Whenever the elevator dinged, I glanced up in hope, only to be met by complete strangers. Each disappointment added weight to the moment, dragging the afternoon even slower. Still, nothing seemed ominous yet. I expected Wayne would come trudging out eventually, shirt sleeves rolled up the way they always were by evening, the exact lopsided smile on his face, and an apology in his voice for running late. Then we'd argue about whether our daughter needed the upgraded storage option on the new phone, and later laugh over dinner about having spent so much time debating one tiny speck. That was the script in my head. Predictable, harmless, repetitive. Our family life condensed into one rubber stamp outing. But boredom does strange things to your senses. It sharpens little details you would normally ignore. The receptionist was sighing often enough that I started counting her exhales. While the two business guys by, the elevator seemed locked in a debate that might never end. I watched them gesture emphatically with the kind of seriousness usually reserved for hostage negotiations, while Gerald stood serene in his corner, glossy leaves catching the harsh fluorescent light. For a stretch of minutes, I thought Gerald provided the only suspense in the room. Looking back, it's funny how sure I was about that. I thought the weirdest thing I'd deal with that day was wondering whether Gerald was real or plastic. And then, just as I was about to sink into another round of aimless scrolling, someone entered my field of vision. I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye. It wasn't Wayne. It wasn't any of the usual faces I vaguely recognized from my visits here. It was the security guard, stepping across the lobby with a direction that broke the monotony in a way my brain wasn't ready for. The guard's spy movie entrance. He approached with a slowness that carried weight, and suddenly, every small sound in the lobby seemed to dim. This wasn't the casual shuffle of a man on his rounds. It was deliberate, steady, purposeful, like he'd been saving this exact moment for something secret. I realized I had seen him dozens of times before, but had never really looked. He was older, maybe late 50s or early 60s, with a neat gray mustache and soft brown eyes that usually made him feel safe, unthreatening, like a fixture of the place. But right now, those eyes darted around carefully, checking corners, checking faces, making sure no one was paying attention. When he stopped right in front of me, my breath caught. No polite hello, no small talk, not even the thin smile he usually gave visitors. Instead, with one quick motion, he slipped something cleanly into my purse. It was so smooth I almost missed it, like sleight of hand at a magic show. A folded paper, sharp at the corners, buried between my wallet and phone. Then he leaned closer, avoiding my gaze, just at the moment our eyes might have met. In the lowest whisper I've ever heard, he said, "Don't read it here, only at home." And then he straightened, his face emptier than before, and stepped back into the room as though he hadn't done anything unusual at all. My pulse stuttered. A second ago, I had been inventing personalities for potted plants. Now I was caught in the middle of a transaction straight out of a spy thriller. The whole thing lasted less than 5 seconds, but it vibrated in my head as though the lobby itself had shifted into a stage set. For a beat, I didn't move. My hand hovered near my purse, but I didn't dare touch it. My thoughts shot in all directions. Why me? Why now? Had I just been pulled into something real, or was this an elaborate prank? The ridiculous side of me jumped immediately to spy movie cliches. I half expected a soundtrack to kick in, maybe dramatic strings while the camera zoomed on me in confusion. The absurdity wasn't lost on me. My afternoon had gone from yawning over lobby decor to playing unwilling extra in what felt like a bad audition tape for Mission Impossible. Only this wasn't an actor fumbling his lines. This man had sounded serious enough to dry the humor right out of my throat. His warning echoed, "Only at home." 3 simple words, but they hit like a lock being turned. What could possibly be written on a single piece of paper that wasn't safe in this beige waiting area? My skin prickled as I thought of it. I risked a glance at him from across the room, but he was already back at his post, scanning the glass front of the building with his serious, professional face intact. To anyone else, it looked like nothing had happened. Only I knew my purse had stopped being a purse. It was a container holding something I definitely wasn't supposed to have. I pressed my knees together and willed myself to breathe evenly, though my body betrayed me. My palms warmed, my chest tightened. The silence in my head wasn't really silence. It whirled. He had chosen me, and not by accident. When people hand off notes in spy movies, there's always some code, some prepared keyword or gesture. Yet here it was, as plain and blunt as it gets. No savings bond tucked into the lining. No hollow coin rolling under the seat. Just folded paper and one line of whispered instruction. Too plain to be theatrical, which only made it scarier. I searched for something rational to hold on to. Had I confused him for someone else? Maybe the note was intended for somebody else's wife waiting in somebody else's lobby. But that didn't fly. Not after the way he zeroed in on me specifically. He'd walked like there was no other person in that room, no other target but me. People watching him from a distance wouldn't have noticed a thing. Only I knew he'd slipped the air of the mundane right off my shoulders and replaced it with something sharp and cold. And that glance away when he whispered, that detail cut deeper than anything else. He hadn't wanted to meet my eyes, and that wasn't shyness. That was intent. He knew the gravity of what he was saying. It landed cold in my chest, a chill I couldn't shake. He was either deadly sure I needed this, or desperate enough to take the chance that I did. Neither option gave me any comfort. The strangest part? He didn't look like anyone's idea of a covert operative. His uniform was a little loose at the shoulders, his hair graying softly at the temples, his presence the sort you would trust to hold the door open or offer directions. Not slick, not dangerous, not cinematic. Which made it worse, because the seriousness in his whisper had no trace of parody. it came from someone who believed he was doing the right thing. If he had been young and dramatic, it would have been easier to laugh off. But this just sank heavier into my stomach. I sat stiff, phone still clutched as my cover, while in my bag, the note pressed invisibly against the fabric. I imagined its edges glowing like a lit match, daring me to reach for it. Time thickened. My brain ran absurd scenarios to cope. This was a Cold War reenactment group recruiting new members, or maybe a hidden camera prank to see how gullible office wives were. I even pictured the lobby plant, Gerald, secretly recording my reaction for an audience somewhere. But each attempt at humor cracked under the fact that my heart was still racing. The truth was sharper than comedy. Nothing in that moment felt optional. He had folded his warning into my bag and, with it, folded me into something I didn't understand. And however casual his return to the desk looked, I couldn't shake that the real shift had happened to me. From the outside, I was just another woman scrolling a phone. From the inside, it felt like a thin wall had been pulled open, and I'd seen just enough of what lay behind to know I wasn't meant to. The ordinary office lobby was still there, the typing receptionist, the two men arguing near the elevator, but they blurred into background noise. All focus landed on the fact that I was sitting with a secret stitched in paper hidden at the bottom of my purse, calling silently for me to open it. I didn't, of course. His voice replayed in my head like a broken tape, each word hammering the restraint into me. Not here. At home. I swallowed hard. My purse had never felt like such a loud object. And that's where I stayed, frozen in a lobby that looked ordinary to anyone else, but with a weight in my bag that didn't belong to me. Whatever was folded inside, I couldn't read it now. All I could do was sit still, with a strange certainty humming just under my skin. Something in that envelope was waiting for me, and it wouldn't feel silent for long. The forbidden envelope of doom. The note inside my purse had become its own character in the room, impossible to ignore, no matter how I pretended otherwise. It wasn't even sealed in an envelope, just a notebook sheet, folded twice, the edges uneven where it had been torn out in a hurry. I hadn't touched it since he slipped it in, but I could picture the paper perfectly. Faint blue lines pressed with messy handwriting, jagged and rushed, like someone scribbling under pressure. That detail alone sent my mind chasing reasons. Why the urgency? Why the secrecy? The words that had come with it echoed louder than the lobby air conditioning. Not here. At home. That simple instruction left me split in half. One side burned with curiosity, prickling with the need to tear into it right there, in between strangers and vending machines. The other side clung stubbornly to the instruction, warning me that ignoring it could mean stepping into something I wasn't prepared for. The conflict churned quietly, but it took over my thoughts. I could scroll my phone, cross my legs, shift positions on the couch. None of it worked. The proximity of that folded sheet reached at me like static electricity. What was the harm in knowing now? It would take seconds, slip it out, unfold it, and I'd have the truth. But that wasn't the deal. The seriousness in the guard's voice kept my hand pinned to my lap. If reading it here didn't matter, why make it a rule at all? That uncertainty is what hooked me. It tightened my resolve and tempted me in the same breath. I thought about how ridiculous I must look, frozen in a bland office lobby while treating a piece of paper like contraband. Yet my mind wouldn't stop spiraling. Secrets create that vacuum. Tell someone not to look, not to touch, and suddenly resisting feels like the most difficult thing in the world. I could have been waiting for Wayne in perfect peace, empty-headed and impatient like always, but instead, there I was convinced that my bag contained something volatile. Scenarios began tumbling into my head without invitation. Maybe it was as boring as a reminder about parking tickets or some workplace memo that belonged to someone else. But he hadn't looked playful when he handed it over. He'd looked grave, weight in his tone, like this mattered. And when someone makes even scratched notebook paper feel urgent, your brain fills gaps quickly. What if it exposed something dangerous? What if Wayne was tied to something he'd never told me? The questions kept building, thick enough that they didn't leave room for anything ordinary to exist. I tried forcing rationality into my head. Maybe the guard had grown tired of being invisible and gave me a meaningless note for drama. except no one carries that kind of focus in their whisper unless they mean it. My mind wandered deeper because curiosity wasn't a whisper anymore. It shouted over the normal rhythm of the lobby. The receptionist's typing blurred into background noise, the men at the elevator into empty silhouettes. The bag at my side dominated everything. There was an almost physical pull to reach for it, unzip the pocket, and defy the command. In my head, I tested excuses. If someone caught me reading, what could I say? That I'd found a shopping list? That it was just scribbles? Even rehearsing those alibis felt childish, but not rehearsing them seemed worse. Danger or not, I couldn't look straight ahead without imagining what words those messy blue lines carried. Time refused to move naturally. A glance at the clock revealed only minutes had passed, but I'd thought myself through dozens of explanations already. Some were absurd, half sketches of comedy skits where the paper only contained stick figures or some crude doodle. Others landed heavy, suspicions of betrayal, money mishaps, or an affair. As much as I laughed internally at the sillier theories, the darker ones weighed more. Each time I circled back to the same split: break the rule and know now, or respect it and wait for the privacy of home. Waiting wasn't easy. Each normal sound in the lobby felt exaggerated: the click of keys, footsteps, the swish of the glass door. I imagined eyes on me from every direction, as if everyone sensed I was hiding something. Of course they didn't know. To them, I was just another person scrolling, bored out of her mind. But to me, I was the only person aware that a folded, ragged slip of paper sat glowing silently alongside my wallet and keys. I pressed my hands harder to my thighs, pretending patience. No one could see the war in my chest, but the longer I sat, the more impossible stillness became. I couldn't shake the idea that giving in to curiosity right there would change something irreversibly. That line became the only thing I clung to, a flimsy kind of discipline that was half obedience, half fear. The lobby hadn't changed. The fluorescent lighting hummed, the ficus still loomed false and glossy in the corner, and people moved past without noticing me. But now, the atmosphere felt charged, because I wasn't just waiting for Wayne anymore. I was waiting on the piece of paper to dictate my next move. And though I never reached for it, the constant fight to hold back kept me locked in place. It wasn't just the paper anymore. It was every story my mind insisted on writing across its creased surface. Each version, silly or serious, tightened hold of me, until my glances weren't toward the doors or the elevators, but toward the silent tug of my handbag. The guard had told me to wait until I was home, and so that's what I would do, even though the decision cost me every ounce of calm I pretended to have. I shifted, straightened, tried to look casual, because even in the middle of a crowded room, it suddenly felt like someone might be watching for exactly how I handled this. And it was right there, soaked in suspense but invisible to everyone around me, that the paranoia began to creep in. Paranoid in plain sight. I sank back into the stiff couch, pretending I belonged in that lobby like any other Tuesday visitor. But my nerves betrayed me. Every ordinary click of a keyboard or shuffle of feet suddenly carried new weight. Ever since that paper found its place inside my bag, the backdrop of daily office life no longer felt neutral. My eyes skimmed across the room, restless. Routine became suspect. People dropped into roles they hadn't auditioned for, unwitting extras in the growing spy film playing only in my head. The receptionist, for example, had never stirred much thought in me before. Usually, she blended right into the furniture, typing, answering calls, sipping iced coffee in a continuous cycle. But now, her fingers pounded the keys with such persistence that I was sure she wasn't drafting a memo at all. Each keystroke carried suspicion. Maybe she was documenting the handoff, recording timestamps for her secret agency logbook. Or worse, maybe my name was being fed straight into a system I wasn't meant to exist in. Of course, a quieter voice in me said she could just be hammering the keyboard because her spreadsheet froze again, but I couldn't hold on to that logic. To me, in that moment, she was a frontline informant. Her desk wasn't a reception post anymore. It was a workstation for surveillance. And the cough she let slip a minute later? Clearly that wasn't ordinary either. A signal, coded, delivered straight from throat to headquarters. Then my attention tilted to the two men standing near the elevator. On any other day, they would have looked like overworked employees, half bored with their exchange. Their brief conversation likely circled numbers, forecasts, percentages that wouldn't interest anyone outside their department. But not to me, not anymore. In their hushed tones and tightened expressions, I heard cover stories. Their hands weren't idle either. One man tapped his briefcase lightly against his leg, twice in quick rhythm. Tap, pause, tap. A normal fidget for anyone with restless energy. But for me, it was no ordinary motion. It became a signal, confirmation, a silent code passed from one agent to another within eyeshot of the woman holding the classified slip. Financial talk? Please, they were coordinating. My imagination attached layers of planning to their tones, to their controlled steps. And that briefcase? Obviously stuffed with documents not meant for the public. I knew deep down how absurd these thoughts ran. But paranoia doesn't check in with logic. Paranoia takes the ordinary and coats it in shadow. I watched them adjust ties and thought irrationally about wires, about transmitters lined up neatly along the sill. My humor tried to wrestle it back, telling myself an underground spy agency couldn't possibly stage its covert operations in a lobby equipped with fluorescent lighting and a vending machine. But humor couldn't outrun the hammering suspicion that everyone here was, in some way, watching me back. That was the strangest part. The note felt like a magnet in my bag, and suddenly everyone else acted as if they already knew of its presence. Like I was the only person still pretending. The receptionist glanced down at her monitor again. The two men adjusted their stance, and each movement inflated my state of alert. It was ridiculous, but things didn't stay ridiculous as long as the guard's whisper replayed. His warning carved itself into my head. At home, not here. The seriousness in his voice hadn't been the kind you toss around casually. And at the edges of my imagination, I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe he hadn't chosen me at random. Maybe he'd seen something before. Maybe at night after the office emptied, when shadows stretched longer across the same floor tiles. I didn't know what he'd witnessed, but a flicker of something certain stuck. His caution came from somewhere. The thought didn't calm me. It made my paranoia surge deeper. Because if his whisper came rooted in truth, then all my spirals weren't simple fiction. They were echoes of a reality I hadn't quite glimpsed yet. Every ordinary cough, tie adjustment, or keyboard clack might not be ordinary at all. And sitting quietly with that folded note made me feel like I was, in fact, the last one in the room who hadn't agreed on the script. I shifted in my seat, telling myself to focus, to look inconspicuous. But even that felt impossible. When your own body feels set against you, how do you feign composure? I adjusted the strap of my bag casually, hoping it masked the weight of what pressed against the lining. I folded my arms, then uncrossed them out of fear. It looked defensive. Every attempt to appear casual magnified into performance, and in my head, everyone else was watching me perform badly. It struck me in a wave that what had begun as mild boredom hours ago had transformed into a stage play where normal people, completely innocent staff, had been recast as spies and handlers and messengers. I didn't want to think that way, but the note fed it, pulsing silently, challenging me to hold still until Wayne finally appeared. I sighed, low enough so no one else could hear, but loud in my own chest. The unease didn't break. If anything, it thickened. The receptionist bent to grab something from beneath her desk, and my shoulders tightened automatically. The two men leaned closer into their hushed tones, and I doubled down on the ridiculous idea that their entire conversation was really about me. Rational explanations never stood a chance anymore. Not with a note in my purse, not with a whisper still running through my ears. I sank farther into the couch, unclenching my jaw, and forced myself to keep staring forward. That was all I could do, place one thin wall between my spiraling mind and the actual world around me, hoping no one picked up on the difference. I wasn't sure how long I'd have to keep it up, but the tension had to break eventually. Something or someone was bound to puncture it. And when that happened, I wasn't sure if I'd be relieved or terrified all over again. The elevator dinged. Suspicious husband arrival. Wayne stepped into the lobby with that usual calm confidence, the kind of entrance that might have once been a comfort, but now struck me like an alarm bell. His expression was loose and cheerful, like a man whose workday had ended exactly on schedule. Normally, I would have smiled back openly and let relief wash over me. But tonight, suspicion had already hollowed out the easy parts of recognition. The simple act of seeing him emerge from an elevator no longer felt ordinary. My eyes immediately drifted away from his face and landed on details I never would have noticed before. His tie, for instance. Not just straight, but perfectly aligned, crisp in a way I couldn't remember seeing on an average Tuesday. My thoughts turned that neatness into an indictment. Something too precise, too rehearsed. The same tie that used to look polished now looked like a disguise. I caught myself reacting differently when he leaned in, brushing a kiss across my cheek. The instinct to pull back hit before I could stop it. I masked the move with a tight smile, one that looked smaller than it was meant to. He didn't seem to notice. To him, nothing had shifted. But for me, that half-second hesitation carried weight. What used to be affection now felt like evidence. A seed of doubt sprouted instantly. Who greets their wife so easily, so warmly, if there is something to hide? My imagination spun faster, and suddenly I wasn't welcoming Wayne anymore.